Okay, so I've been trying to work out why we say this today, why the phrase magic works is actually being used when obviously, linguistically and scientifically speaking, there is no way in which you can apply those words to anything in this part of the 21st century, moving further forward to do anything good or constructive. Now, my research has suggested a few things. Firstly, the first mass usage, remember, I've been researching from 1953 onwards, all right, from when Wicca essentially was initiated in 1953. Okay, so if magic works was directly connected to magic then there'll be much more repetition or mention of the phrase magic works. Very little until 1970s. 1970s, all right, and this was an important time for women. Women were going through hell. I mean, I look back at some of the humor that was on TV in the 70s and early 80s, and I cringe at what I laughed at, okay, because it was really, really very misogynistic and really, really unpleasant. The women were going through terrible, terrible, terrible times, and they needed a mantra to say, we are women, we are strong, we are powerful, pay attention to us, and we want equal rights, we want control over our own bodies, and we essentially want feminism brought into effect. That is a very valid use of the phrase magic works as a political statement to say, we are genuinely being persecuted here, now can you listen to us? But it was not a statement about magic. It was using the image of the feminine, of the witch, in order to portray the idea that women are important. You know, we we need to be looked after too. I like that. I actually like that use of it because it's there for empowerment of a minority who's going through hell. But then, in the 1980s, according to my research, we got a couple of forces going on there. We start having the New Age marketplace being a real thing. It was there in the 60s to a certain extent, there in the 70s to a certain extent, but the 1980s created the New Age market. All right, prior to the way that the New Age market is these days, it was the New Age market with the New Age imagery, which I really rather loved at the time, actually, to be quite frank. But the phrase magic works was used there as a form of commodification and as a marketing tool for various different forms of self-developmental courses and so on and so forth. But it was sold as a marketing tool, not necessarily as a statement of fact. So from the 1970s and the 1980s, we got different attitudes to the phrase magic works. Number one, protect women, empower women. That's good. 1980s, we can make some money out of this. You know, the commercial aspect took over, and the phrase started to be misused. By the year 2000 and from then onwards, and we're talking about activity online, the phrase magic works started to develop the characteristics of a dogma. All right, a creed. It started to develop this this thing that this is a real thing, right? You know, and any form of skepticism was punished. So then it becomes, within that circle, you are only accepted if you use the phrase magic works. Okay? It's not because magic works. It's not because you can apply the term and say that there are results which are miraculous, specific, time-bound, measurable, reliable, and repeatable. No. It's being used as a form of developed social engineering so that people can communicate together amongst themselves. Now, you might think that's okay, but I don't. I still think the use of the phrase magic works has to end, and I think it is completely and utterly inappropriate and very, very dangerous in this era. It was only until 2010 that the term magic works has now been co-opted by other groups. And that is something I'm rather afraid of making a movie of at some point in the future. But the phrase magic works is no longer being used as much by nice people. Let's just say that. It's not being used as much in feminist circles to say that we are women, we are powerful, and we are important. It's not being used as much for commodification of courses and self-development and that sort of thing. It's definitely still being used dogmatically to punish people who disagree with the use of the phrase, it works, it works, it works, it works, or whatever. I mean, it's insane. But you know, this phrase is now being used by people for political purposes, but not to support the left. So there's even more reasons why we need to look very carefully at the use of language and spirituality and try and work out who's communicating to us and why they're communicating to us and why they're using the phrase magic works. There is no result which is specific, time-bound, measurable, reliable, and repeatable from any form of magic, and I've been playing around with this for longer than you have. So no, we must take this phrase and we must learn to remove it, and we must find a way of bringing critical thinking back into our culture somehow. All right? So, if you're using the phrase magic works and you're sort of like a white power guy, remember you're actually using a feminist chant. All right? So you're supporting the women. Oh, very good. Good. And I'll speak to you again in another delightful video. But remember, you know, this is a word which has developed, this is a phrase which develops a life of its own, has been used for both good purposes and bad purposes, is still in our language, and is now being used to suggest that, let's say, the lesser key of Solomon is something you could use to potentially cure cancer, which is, of course, completely hooey. If you use the phrase magic works, you're actually saying that. You're saying that you can do impossible, miraculous things, and you are that powerful. All right? Put it to the test against nature. Go on. I dare you.